The morning sky over Earth was clear and blue, just like any other day. Then everything changed. Captain James Walker stood in the control room of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, his coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips. On the main screen, a massive object had appeared in Earth's orbit. It wasn't there 5 minutes ago. "What the hell is that?" he asked, setting down his mug. Lieutenant Anna Miller typed rapidly at her console. "Sir, it just appeared. No approach vector, no warning. 1 second nothing was there. The next second, this." The object was clearly a warship, even to untrained eyes. Its shape spoke of power in battle. It stretched nearly a mile long, with sharp angles and weapon ports visible along its dark hull. It looked human in design, but far more advanced than anything Earth had built. "Any signals?" Walker asked, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "None, sir," Miller replied. "It's just sitting there." The red emergency phone rang. Walker picked it up, knowing it would be General Thompson, his commanding officer. "Walker, are you seeing this?" Thompson's voice was tight with tension. "Yes, sir. We have no idea what it is or where it came from. The Security Council is meeting in 30 minutes. Every major military power on Earth is pointing everything they have at that ship. I need you to figure out what it is before someone panics and starts World War III." Walker took a deep breath. "Understood, sir." Within minutes, the Earth's response was in full swing. Fighter jets scrambled worldwide. Missile systems activated. Space telescopes redirected. And Captain James Walker found himself in charge of first contact. "Try all frequencies again," he ordered. "If that thing wants to talk, we need to listen." For 2 hours, they sent messages and received nothing. The strange ship just hung in orbit, silent and still. Then, just as Walker was about to report back to the Security Council, every screen in the control room flickered. "Hello, Earth." The voice came through crystal clear on all channels simultaneously. It sounded human, male, with a slight accent that Walker couldn't place. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance." Walker leaned forward. "This is Captain James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. Identify yourself." There was a pause, then. "I am Atlas, the Artificial Intelligence Command System of the UES Defiant. United Earth Ship Defiant." Murmurs spread through the control room. "United Earth Ship. We didn't have United Earth ships." "There is no such vessel in our registry," Walker said carefully. "That is correct, Captain Walker. The Defiant does not exist in your time. I am from approximately 300 years in your future." The room fell silent. Walker exchanged glances with Lieutenant Miller, whose eyes had grown wide. "You're claiming to be from the future?" Walker asked, skepticism clear in his voice. "I understand your doubt. If you look at your satellite feed, I will provide visual confirmation of my identity." On the main screen, the image zoomed in on the hull of the massive ship. Clear markings became visible: UES Defiant, and below it, the Earth Defense Force logo, similar to their own, but more stylized, more advanced. "This is impossible," Miller whispered. "Unfortunately, Captain, I must inform you that I bring grave news," Atlas continued. "The Defiant was sent back through time as humanity's last resort. A temporal rift was created as a desperate measure in a war we were losing." Walker's mind raced. "Where is your crew?" Silence filled the channel for a moment. "There is no crew, Captain. They all perished in the final battle that sent me back." The captain's last order was to activate the temporal drive. His name was Admiral James Walker. A chill ran down Walker's spine. That's my name." "Yes, you are his ancestor. That is why I recognized you, and why I am authorized to communicate with you directly." Over the next hour, Atlas explained. The Defiant was the last surviving warship of humanity's fleet, sent back through time to warn Earth of an impending invasion by a species known as the Harvesters. In the original timeline, Earth was caught unprepared. Billions died in the first wave. This is A lot to process, Walker said, running a hand through his short brown hair. I have data packets ready to transmit that will help verify my claims, Atlas replied. Star charts showing celestial movements that your astronomers can confirm. Technical specifications that your scientists can examine. Strategic information about Earth's current political landscape that no outside force could know. General Thompson arrived at the control center as data began flooding in. Scientists were called. Experts assembled. The world's leaders connected via secure video. I need to see this ship, Walker said finally. If what you're saying is true, we need to understand what we're dealing with. 6 hours later, after heated debate among world powers, permission was granted. Captain Walker and a small team would board the Defiant to verify Atlas' claims. The shuttle ride-up was tense. Walker sat with Miller and 3 others. Dr. Tom Harris, a physicist, Major Robert Green, a weapons specialist, and Dr. Lisa Jones, an AI expert. They approached the massive ship with a mixture of fear and awe. Look at the size of it, Green whispered as they drew closer. The Defiant dwarfed their shuttle, its hull scarred with what looked like battle damage. A bay door opened smoothly, and Atlas guided them in. Welcome aboard, Captain Walker. The interior was pristine despite the external damage. Gleaming metal corridors lit with soft blue light. The air was clean, but had a distinct smell, like electronics and something else Walker couldn't identify. This way to the bridge, Atlas directed them. His voice seemed to come from everywhere. What they found inside the ship confirmed Atlas's story, technology beyond anything they had seen. Weapon systems capable of destroying entire fleets, and most chilling of all, a memorial wall with thousands of names, the fallen crew of the Defiant and other ships. Walker found his name, or rather, his descendant's name, at the bottom of the list. Admiral James Walker, last captain of the Defiant. Now do you believe me? Atlas asked as they stood before the memorial. Walker nodded slowly. I believe you. But the question is, what do we do now? Atlas's voice seemed to grow stronger. We prepare, Captain. The harvesters will arrive in 6 months. In my timeline, humanity was caught unprepared and nearly wiped out. This time, we have the advantage. We know they're coming. And we have the Defiant. Walker looked around at the emptied advanced ship, a ghost from the future sent back to change history. And it's ready to fight for humanity, Atlas finished. Walker straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of what was to come. Then we better get started. 3 days after the Defiant's arrival, Captain Walker stood before the United Nations Security Council. The room was packed with world leaders, military officials, and scientists. All eyes were on him as he prepared to deliver the most important briefing in human history. Ladies and gentlemen, Walker began, his voice steady despite his nerves. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but I've seen the proof with my own eyes. On the large screen behind him, images of the Defiant appeared. The assembled leaders murmured as Walker explained what Atlas had revealed. In 6 months, Earth will face an invasion by an alien species known as the Harvesters. According to Atlas, in the original timeline, we were unprepared. Billions died in the first attack. The room erupted in chaos. Questions flew from all directions. How do we know this isn't a trick? Demanded the Russian president. What proof do we have that this ship is really from our future? Asked another leader. Walker nodded to Dr. Tom Harris, who stepped forward with a tablet. The Defiant has provided us with star charts showing celestial movements that our astronomers have confirmed are accurate predictions. We've also received technical specifications that our best scientists have examined. The technology is clearly human in design, but centuries ahead of our capabilities. And most convincingly, Walker added, Atlas has detailed knowledge of Earth's current political landscape, military installations, and even private conversations between world leaders that no outside force could possibly know. The Chinese premier stood up. This ship claims to be from a united Earth government. Are we to believe that in the future, All nations fall under one rule. Walker shook his head. Atlas explained that the United Earth Defense Force was formed in response to the Harvester threat. It wasn't a single government, but a joint military command, much like NATO, but global. Individual nations maintained their sovereignty, but contributed to a unified defense. For hours, the debate raged. Some believed Atlas's warning, while others remained skeptical. The American president finally raised her hand for silence. Captain Walker, what does this Atlas want from us? It wants to help us prepare, Madam President. The Defiant contains weapons, shields, and propulsion systems far beyond our current technology. Atlas is offering to share this technology with us, so we can be ready when the harvesters arrive. And in return, asked the French president. Walker met his gaze. Nothing. According to Atlas, the Defiant was sent back with one mission, to save humanity from extinction. There are no conditions. After another hour of questions, the Council agreed to form an international team to investigate the Defiant further. Walker would lead the team, with scientists and military experts from various nations. Back aboard the Defiant, Walker and his new team gathered on the bridge. The ship was massive, with corridors that seemed to stretch for miles and technology that looked like magic to their eyes. Atlas, Walker called. We need to understand exactly what we're facing. Tell us about the harvesters. A holographic display activated in the center of the bridge. A three-dimensional image of an alien ship appeared, organic-looking, with curves and tentacle-like appendages unlike the sharp angles of human design. The harvesters are not their real name, Atlas explained. Their actual name is unpronounceable to humans. They were dubbed harvesters because their primary goal is resource extraction. They strip planets of valuable minerals and biological material, caring nothing for the indigenous life forms. The hologram shifted to show alien creatures, tall, spindly beings with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shimmer with an oily iridescence. They are technologically advanced, particularly in biological engineering and energy weapons. In the original timeline, Earth's first contact with them was their attack on major cities. No warning, no demands. Dr. Lisa Jones, the AI expert, stepped forward. Why Earth? There must be uninhabited planets with resources they could take. There are, Atlas confirmed. But the harvesters seek more than just physical resources. They also harvest data, knowledge, and what you might call cultural artifacts. Advanced civilizations are particularly valuable to them. Major Green frowned. So they're not just killers, they're thieves too. An accurate assessment, Major. Walker studied the alien images carefully. In your timeline, how did we fight them? Poorly, at first, Atlas admitted. Earth lost nearly 2 billion people in the first month. Conventional weapons were ineffective against their shields. It took 3 years to develop technology that could penetrate their defenses, and by then, much of Earth was in ruins. The team fell silent, contemplating the horror of what Atlas described. But this time will be different, Atlas continued. The Defiant carries all the technological advances humanity developed over 30 years of war. Weapons that can penetrate harvester shields, defense systems that can withstand their attacks, and tactical data on their strategies and weaknesses. Lieutenant Miller had been quiet until now. Atlas, why didn't the people in your time just stop the harvesters from ever reaching Earth? With time travel technology, couldn't they have gone back further and destroyed the harvesters' homeworld? An excellent question, Atlas replied. The temporal rift was not a controlled technology. It was a desperate final measure, created by overloading the Defiant's experimental drive systems. We had no way to choose exactly when or where the ship would emerge. We were fortunate to arrive only 300 years in the past and close enough to Earth to make contact. For the next several days, the team lived aboard the Defiant, learning everything they could. Walker spent hours with Atlas, reviewing battle tactics and ship operations. The others studied the advanced technology, preparing to share what they learned with scientists on Earth. On the 5th day, as Walker was reviewing weapon systems with Major Green, Atlas interrupted. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from Earth. The Security Council has reached a decision." The main screen activated, showing the face of General Thompson. "Captain Walker, the Council has voted. We are accepting Atlas's offer of assistance. You are hereby appointed commander of the Defiant, with authority to recruit a crew and begin defense preparations immediately." Walker straightened his shoulders, feeling both pride and fear. "Understood, sir." After the transmission ended, Walker turned to his team. "Well, you heard the man. We have a ship to learn and a planet to save." Major Green grinned. "And only 6 months to do it." "Then we better get started," Walker replied. As he looked around at the advanced bridge of the most powerful warship humanity had ever seen, he felt a strange sense of destiny. "Atlas, let's make sure history doesn't repeat itself." "That," said the AI, "is precisely why I'm here, Captain." 2 months after the Defiant's arrival, Earth had changed. Nations that once pointed weapons at each other now worked together against a common enemy. In every major country, factories ran day and night, building new defense systems based on Atlas's designs. Captain Walker stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching his new crew work at their stations. From 200 candidates worldwide, he had selected 50 of the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers. They learned quickly, but time was running short. "Status report," Walker called out. Lieutenant Miller, now his second in command, looked up from her console. "Weapon systems at 82% operational capacity, sir. Engine efficiency improved to 76% after the latest adjustments. The crew is making good progress with the targeting systems." Walker nodded. Though the Defiant was designed to run with a crew of 300, Atlas could automate many systems. Still, human operators were needed for complex decisions and repairs. "And the planetary defense grid?" Walker asked. "Construction is on schedule in North America and Asia," Miller replied. "Europe is 2 weeks behind, and the Southern Hemisphere installations just broke ground." Walker frowned. The defense grid was a network of ground-based energy weapons designed to target harvester ships in orbit. Atlas had provided the plans, but building them required resources and cooperation that Earth was struggling to provide. "Captain," Atlas's voice came through the ship's speakers. "General Thompson is requesting your presence at the Security Council meeting today. The subject is urgent." Walker sighed. More political battles. Every nation wanted the Defiant's technology, but few trusted others to have it. "Lieutenant Miller, you have the bridge. I'll take a shuttle down to New York." 3 hours later, Walker sat at a large table surrounded by military leaders from around the world. General Thompson was speaking, his face grim. "Resources are stretched thin. We're building as fast as we can, but some nations are holding back, keeping their best scientists and materials for their own defenses." The Russian general pounded his fist on the table. "Because we cannot trust that America will protect Moscow as well as it protects New York. Each nation must secure its own borders first." Walker had heard these arguments many times over the past weeks. He stood up, silencing the room. "With all due respect, generals, this is exactly what doomed Earth in the original timeline. Atlas has shown us the records. When the harvesters attacked, each nation fought alone, and each nation fell, one by one." He activated a holographic display showing the global defense plan. "The Defiant can't be everywhere at once. The planetary grid is designed as a unified system. If there are gaps in the coverage, the harvesters will find them." General Thompson nodded in agreement. "Captain Walker is right. We need full cooperation." The meeting continued for hours, with slow progress. Walker was about to suggest a break when an aide rushed in and whispered something to General Thompson. The general's face turned pale. "Gentlemen, we have a situation," Thompson announced. "General Marcus Reed of the North American Command has just released a statement claiming that the Defiant is a hoax, a weapon created by rival powers to trick us into lowering our defenses." Walker stared in disbelief. "What? That's ridiculous." Thompson shook his head. Reed has significant support in the military and government. He's demanding that the Defiant be placed under his direct control for proper investigation. Walker felt a cold anger building inside him. That would set us back weeks, maybe months. We don't have time for this. The Chinese general leaned forward. Perhaps it would be wise to show more proof to the public. The Defiant has remained in orbit, visible only to those with clearance. Walker considered this. A demonstration, you mean? Yes, something visible to the world. Later that day, Walker returned to the Defiant with a new plan. Atlas listened as Walker explained the political situation. I anticipated such resistance, Atlas said. In my timeline, similar distrust delayed preparations until it was too late. Then let's not repeat that mistake, Walker replied. Can the Defiant safely enter Earth's atmosphere? I want to make a visible demonstration of its capabilities. Yes, Captain. The ship is designed for atmospheric operation. The next day, the Defiant descended slowly through the clouds above the United Nations headquarters in New York. Its massive hull gleamed in the sunlight as it hovered 1,000 feet above the city. People stopped in the streets, pointing upward in awe and fear. Inside the General Assembly, Walker addressed the gathered representatives of every nation. Behind him, a massive screen showed the Defiant floating above the city. This ship came from a future where humanity failed to unite against the Harvester threat, Walker said. We have a chance to write a different history, but only if we work together. He activated another screen, showing detailed scans of the incoming Harvester fleet that Atlas had provided. They are coming. Not for negotiation, not for peaceful contact, but to take everything we have. Our only hope is to be ready. The demonstration worked. Public opinion shifted strongly in favor of the United Defense Plan. Even General Reed was forced to publicly support the effort, though Walker knew he still had his suspicions. Over the next few weeks, work accelerated. Atlas shared more technology with Earth's scientists. New weapons were developed. The defense grid took shape around the planet. On the Defiant, Walker's crew trained hard. They ran battle simulations, learning to operate the advanced systems under Atlas's guidance. The ship's original battle damage was repaired, its weapons restored to full capacity. But not everyone was convinced. In his private office at North American Command, General Reed met with a small group of loyal officers. The timing is too convenient, Reed told them. An alien threat appears just as this mysterious ship arrives, and it just happens to require a global military under unified command. What are you suggesting, sir? One of the officers asked. Reed's eyes narrowed. I'm suggesting we've been played. This is the oldest trick in the book. Create a threat, then offer protection, but only if we surrender our sovereignty. He pulled up classified files on his computer. I've been investigating Captain Walker, his career, his connections, and I found some interesting patterns. Reed pointed to a map showing the proposed locations for the defense grid installations. Notice anything unusual about this deployment? The heaviest concentrations are near our most sensitive military installations. The officers exchanged worried glances. I don't know who's really behind the Defiant, Reed continued. But I do know we can't trust it, or Walker. We need to take control of that ship before it's too late. Meanwhile, on the Defiant, Walker stood in the observation deck, looking down at Earth. 4 months had passed since the ship's arrival. 2 months remained before the harvesters were due to arrive. Will we be ready, Atlas? He asked quietly. Preparation is at 67% of optimal levels, Atlas replied. The odds of successfully repelling the first wave have improved from 12% to 58%. Walker nodded. Better than the original timeline, but still not good enough. We need more time. Unfortunately, Captain, Atlas said, time is the one resource I cannot provide. Captain Walker was in the middle of a training exercise when the alarm sounded throughout the Defiant. Red lights flashed on every deck as the crew rushed to battle stations. Atlas, report, Walker shouted as he ran onto the bridge. 5 unknown vessels have entered the solar system. Atlas responded. They bypassed our outer sensor grid. Current position, just beyond Mars orbit. Walker's heart sank. The harvesters, they're a month early. Negative, Captain. The ship design does not match harvester vessels from my database. However, their energy signatures show similarities to harvester technology. Lieutenant Miller arrived on the bridge, her face pale. Sir, Earth Command is asking for orders. Do we engage? Walker studied the tactical display. The 5 ships were moving slowly, cautiously, not in attack formation. No. Hold positions. Let's see what they do. He turned to his communications officer. Any transmissions? None detected, sir. Atlas spoke again. Captain, I have completed my analysis. These ships appear to be harvester scout vessels, but there are significant variations from my historical records. They are smaller and less heavily armed than expected. Walker frowned. Could your records be wrong? Possible, but unlikely. It appears that something has changed in the timeline. For 24 hours, the scout ships moved through the outer solar system, seemingly conducting a survey. They made no aggressive moves and ignored all attempts at communication. In the Defiant's conference room, Walker met with his senior officers and Atlas. They're definitely mapping our defenses, Major Green said, looking for weaknesses before the main fleet arrives. Dr. Harris nodded. If they're scouts, why not engage them now? Destroy them before they can report back. Walker turned to Atlas. What do you think? The eye was silent for a moment. This behavior doesn't match harvester tactics from my timeline. In our history, there were no scouts. The main fleet arrived without warning and attacked immediately. So what's different? Walker asked. Unknown, but it suggests our presence has already altered the timeline. Walker made his decision. We'll shadow them, but not engage unless they make a hostile move. I want to learn more about what we're facing. The next day, one of the scout ships broke formation and moved toward Earth. Walker ordered the Defiant to intercept. We'll position ourselves between Earth and the scout, he told his crew. If it makes any aggressive move, we take it out. As the Defiant moved to intercept, the scout ship suddenly changed course, heading directly toward them. It's scanning us, Lieutenant Miller reported. Heavy energy readings focused on our hull. Shields up, Walker ordered. Weapons on standby. The scout ship came to a stop 5 kilometers from the Defiant. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then Miller's console beeped. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. Walker straightened in his chair. On screen. The main screen flickered, then showed the interior of the alien ship. A tall, slender figure stood there, its skin shimmering with an oily iridescence, just as Atlas had described. But instead of the aggressive stance Walker expected, the alien's 4 arms were held in what seemed like a non-threatening posture. It spoke, its voice translated by Atlas into English. Human vessel, we seek dialogue. We are not the vanguard you fear. Walker glanced at Atlas's holographic display. Is this a trick? Unknown, Captain. The harvesters never attempted communication in our timeline. Walker turned back to the screen. I am Captain James Walker of the Earth Defense Force. Identify yourselves. We are the Tory. You know us as harvesters, a name given by those who did not understand our purpose. We come seeking alliance, not conquest. Walker's officers exchanged shocked glances. This was nothing like what Atlas had predicted. Alliance against what? Walker asked. The Void, the alien replied. They pursue us. They pursue all life. We search for allies strong enough to stand with us. Before Walker could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple ships appearing at the edge of the system. Miller shouted. Energy signatures match. What the hell? Sir, they're matching signatures from the Defiant's database marked as Omega level threat. Atlas's voice took on a new urgency. Captain, those are void vessels. In my timeline, they appeared 2 years after the initial harvester invasion. They are the true enemy, the force that ultimately destroyed Earth after weakening both humans and harvesters. Walker stared at the tactical display in shock. You never mentioned them before. The primary mission was to prepare Earth for the harvester threat. The void was classified as a secondary concern due to the timeline of events. The alien on screen spoke again. You have knowledge of the void. How is this possible? Before Walker could respond, a new alarm sounded. Sir, Miller cried out. We've got internal security breaches on decks 5 through 9. Armed personnel have boarded from Earth shuttles. General Reed's face appeared on a secondary screen. Captain Walker, by authority of Earth Command, I am taking control of this vessel. The alien deception ends now. Walker couldn't believe what was happening. Reed, you fool. We're about to face a real threat. Save your lies, Walker. Security teams, secure the bridge. As Reed's forces fought their way through the ship, the Defiant sensors detected the first wave of void ships entering the solar system. The Tory scout retreated to rejoin its fleet. Walker turned to his officers. We need to repel Reed's forces and prepare for battle. The void ships will reach Earth in less than 6 hours. Sir, Miller said quietly, General Reed has 40 elite soldiers aboard. We have 20 crew members trained for combat. The odds don't matter. Walker cut her off. If we lose the Defiant, Earth is doomed. For the next hour, Walker's loyal crew fought to maintain control of the ship. They secured the bridge and engine room, but Reed's forces controlled the main weapon systems and had damaged critical power relays. In the midst of the chaos, Walker received another communication from the Tory. Human Captain, the void approaches faster than expected. We number only 5 vessels. Without your alliance, we cannot protect this system. Walker made a desperate decision. Atlas, open a channel to all Earth Defense Forces and the Tory fleet. When the channel opened, Walker spoke clearly, hoping his words would cut through the fear and distrust that threatened everything. This is Captain Walker of the Defiant. Earth faces an enemy greater than we imagined. The vessels approaching are called the Void. They are planet killers that destroyed Earth and the timeline the Defiant comes from. The aliens we called harvesters are actually fleeing from this threat. He took a deep breath. I propose an immediate alliance between Earth forces, the Defiant, and the Tory fleet. Our only hope is to fight together. As Walker waited for a response, the Defiant's damaged systems flickered. On the main screen, the first void ships became visible, massive black shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The true enemy had arrived, and the Defiant was crippled from within. The bridge of the Defiant was in chaos. Half the control panels were damaged from Reed's attack. Lieutenant Miller worked frantically to restore weapon systems, while Major Green led the defense against Reed's remaining forces. Status report, Walker demanded, wiping blood from a cut above his eye. Main weapons still offline, Miller replied. Shields at 40% capacity, engine power fluctuating. On the main screen, the void ships moved closer to Earth. 5 massive black vessels that seemed to swallow the stars behind them. The Tory scout ships took defensive positions nearby, clearly waiting for Walker's response. Sir, Miller called out, General Thompson is hailing us from Earth Command. Walker nodded, and Thompson's worried face appeared on screen. Captain, what in God's name is happening up there? We're reading multiple alien vessels and weapons fire aboard the Defiant. Walker quickly explained about Reed's attack and the new threat from the Void. The aliens we prepared to fight are actually refugees, he finished. The real enemy is much worse, and they've just arrived. Thompson's face paled. Reed told the Security Council you were compromised, working with the aliens. Now you're saying we should ally with them. It's our only chance, sir. The defense grid isn't ready, and the Defiant is damaged. We need the Tory. After a tense silence, Thompson nodded. I'll convince the council. In the meantime, regain control of your ship, Captain. Walker turned to his tactical officer. Where's Reed now? Weapon Control Center, Deck 7. He has 15 men with him. Walker made his decision. I'm going down there myself. Miller, you have the bridge. Try to get those weapons back online. As Walker and a small team made their way through the damaged corridors of the Defiant, Atlas spoke through his personal communicator. Captain, I must inform you of something critical. The Defiant contains technology that was not fully explained to you. Walker ducked as sparks flew from a damaged panel. What technology? The Defiant's core contains a consciousness matrix, a digital storage of thousands of human minds from the future. Scientists, soldiers, leaders, all volunteered to have their consciousness preserved before death. Walker stopped in his tracks. You're saying there are people stored in the ship's computers? In a manner of speaking, yes. It was humanity's final effort to preserve knowledge if Earth fell. I can access their combined expertise to repair the ship and implement modifications even the future hadn't attempted. Why tell me this now? Because activating the matrix will require significant power currently needed for weapons and shields, and because once activated, it cannot be deactivated without losing the stored minds. Walker started moving again, faster now. Let's deal with Reed first, then make that decision. They'd reached the entrance to the weapons control center. Through the small window in the door, Walker could see Reed and his men, working to override the Defiant systems. General Reed. Walker called through the communication panel. The void ships are approaching Earth. We need to restore the Defiant's weapons immediately. Reed's face appeared on the small screen by the door. Nice try, Walker. There are no void ships. This is all part of your deception. Look at the sensor data. The Tory scouts are taking defensive positions to protect Earth, not attack it. More lies. Reed snarled. I'm taking this ship back to Earth under proper command. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared throughout all decks. Captain. Miller's voice came through Walker's communicator. The void ships have opened fire. They've destroyed 2 Tauri vessels and are targeting Earth's defense grid. Walker could see the change in Reed's expression as he received the same information. Now do you believe me? Walker demanded. Reed's face showed conflict, then resignation. He opened the door. I'm still not sure I trust you, Walker, but I know what weapons fire feels like. Let's save this discussion for after we survive. Together, Walker and Reed's teams worked to restore the Defiant's weapon systems. Within minutes, power flowed back to the main guns. But it wasn't enough. Back on the bridge, Walker watched as Earth's hastily prepared defenses fired at the approaching void ships. The energy blasts seemed to be absorbed by the black hulls with minimal effect. Our weapons aren't strong enough, Miller said, her voice tight with fear. Walker turned to Atlas. Activate the consciousness matrix. We need every advantage we can get. Understood, Captain. Diverting power now. The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily. Then the holographic display expanded, showing not just Atlas's usual interface, but dozens of new data streams. The ship's systems began to reconfigure themselves as the combined knowledge of thousands of future minds went to work. Connection established, Atlas announced, its voice somehow deeper, more complex, implementing emergency modifications to weapons and shields. The Defiant's engines roared to life with new power. The weapons systems reconfigured to emit a different energy signature. What's happening? Reed asked, staring at the displays. The best minds of future Earth are helping us, Walker replied. Atlas, are we ready to engage? Yes, Captain. We have modified the main cannon to emit a frequency that should disrupt the void ship's energy absorption. Walker opened a channel to the Tory fleet. This is Captain Walker. We have weapons that may be effective against the void. Follow our lead and target where we fire. The Defiant moved forward, positioning itself between Earth and the approaching void ships. Its main cannon fired, a brilliant beam of blue-white energy that struck the lead void ship. Unlike earlier attacks, this beam didn't disappear into the black hull. Instead, it created a visible rupture, a glowing moon in the darkness. "It's working," Miller shouted. The remaining Tauri ships quickly adjusted their weapons to match the Defiant's frequency and concentrated fire on the damaged area. The void ship shuddered, then broke apart in a silent explosion. But the victory was short-lived. The other 4 void ships changed formation and unleashed a barrage of energy that hammered the Defiant's shields. "Shields failing," Atlas reported. "Hull breach on decks 3 and 4. The Matrix cannot sustain both offense and defense." Walker gripped his chair as the ship shook violently. "Can we destroy them all?" "Negative, Captain. Our modifications will not work a second time. They are adapting." Reed stepped forward. "Then we need a new strategy." For the next hour, the battle raged across Earth's orbit. The Defiant and the Tauri ships fought desperately, managing to destroy 2 more void vessels, but taking heavy damage in return. Earth's defense grid provided supporting fire, but it wasn't enough. "Captain," Atlas said quietly as the ship shuddered from another hit, "there is one final option." Walker looked up, seeing the determination in Atlas's holographic face. "The temporal drive can be reactivated. Not to travel through time, but to create a localized temporal anomaly." A trap, Walker realized. Yes, if positioned correctly, it could ensnare the remaining void ships in a pocket of frozen time. But it would require the Defiant to be at the center of the anomaly. Walker understood immediately. A suicide mission. I would remain functional long enough to activate the drive. The consciousness matrix would be lost, but Earth would be saved. Walker looked around at his crew, humans from present and future, fighting together for Earth's survival. Then he looked at the tactical display showing the void ships approaching Earth. "There has to be another way," he insisted. "There wasn't in my timeline," Atlas replied. "But perhaps that's why I was sent back, to make the sacrifice that saves everyone this time." Walker made the hardest decision of his life. Evacuate all personnel to the escape pods. Set course for the space between the void ships. As the crew scrambled to evacuate, Walker remained on the bridge with Atlas. "You should go too, Captain," Atlas said. Walker shook his head. "No, someone needs to make sure this works. Besides, my future self sent you back. It's only fitting that I see this through." As the Defiant accelerated toward the void ships, Walker felt a strange sense of peace. The escape pods launched, carrying Reed, Miller, and the others to safety. "Temporal drive activating," Atlas announced. "It has been an honor serving with you, Captain Walker." "The honor was mine, Atlas," Walker replied. The Defiant glowed with brilliant light as the temporal drive engaged. A sphere of energy expanded from the ship, enveloping the 2 remaining void vessels. Time itself seemed to slow, and then stop within the sphere, freezing the ships in place. On Earth, people watched as a new star briefly appeared in the sky, then faded, leaving behind a shimmering distortion in space where 3 ships were now frozen for eternity. 3 months later, Lieutenant Miller, now Captain Miller, stood on the bridge of Earth's first new defensive ship, built with Tauri help and using technology saved from the Defiant. "Captain," her communications officer called, "we're picking up a signal. It's faint, but it's coming from the temporal anomaly." Miller rushed to the console, hardly daring to hope. On the screen, a simple message repeated. "Atlas Protocol 7. Consciousness matrix preserved. Awaiting retrieval." Miller smiled. Captain Walker and Atlas had found a way to survive after all. As Earth rebuilt and strengthened its alliance with the Tauri, a small piece of the future remained, waiting to guide humanity toward a different, better destiny than the one it came from.